Hello, welcome to Sheffield Board Gamers Podcast. My name is Rick. I'm joined today by Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hello, and I'm also joined by Sam as well. Hi, Sam.
Hi there, Rick, and hi there, Tom.
Hello.
Right. Oh, yes. For those listening last week, I'm Tom L, not Tom C.
Yes, Tom Lovell from Redwell Games.
I'm going to refer to you as Tom Lovell every time I speak to you. just for clarity.
This is episode 2. We're going to talk about a few different things today, mostly board games. A bit about the club first of all, though. We meet every Tuesday and Wednesday evening, and we also meet on the first Sunday of every month as well. So that's ideal for a full day of gaming if you want to play some longer games.
Now, the Wednesday meeting is at Castle Gaming, is that right? In Stocksbridge.
That's right, yeah. Castle Gaming in Stocksbridge, yeah.
Oh, I've never made it there.
I've also never been. Have you been to it, Rick?
Yeah, I've been a few times, yeah. Yeah, it's quite close to where I live, so it's easy to get to for me.
Oh, cool. See, twice as much gaming each week. I'm jealous. I'll have to make the pilgrimage one day, though, all the way deep out to Stockbridge.
Okay, so we've got a full packed show for you today. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about roll and write games. We've played a few of those recently, so we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about a game called Tiny Towns, which I've played a few times. Tom's going to speak to Andrew Bussey from Glasgow Games Gathering. Sam's going to tell us what games he's been playing recently. We're going to hear from a club member about what games they've been playing. We're going to talk about some new club games that we've got in. Got a question of the week, which is what board games do you play online? So first of all, though, we've been doing other things as well. I've been to a place called the Retro Video Games Market, and that was in Doncaster. They hold these quite regularly. They have them sometimes in Leeds and Manchester, but it was the Doncaster one that I went to. This is a place where they sell old retro video games. So they have like old cartridges and tapes and things like that.
So Spectrum stuff and things like that from the Dark Ages.
Yes, yeah. It's a lot really old stuff there sometimes. But they don't just sell video games. They sell like collectible stuff. They sell, controllers, the game systems themselves. It's really interesting to kind of walk around and see some of the old stuff that's there. Occasionally, also, they'll have board games. There is a stall on there that has like older games, collectible games, things like that. So I saw Mrs. Pac-Man, the board game.
Oh, wow. I bet that sucks.
I think you'll find it bites.
The original one from back in the day. I don't know when it was made, but that looked quite interesting. I actually bought a couple of games as well. I bought a game called Elder Sign, which is an Arkham horror game. That's a newer one. But that was like a bargain, that one. It was only £12, I think it was. I also picked up Civilization, Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game. And again, that's an older one based on the Civilization games. So I'm looking forward to playing those at some point. I don't know if I'll get that played. It's quite a long game. I think it's between 2 and 3 hours.
It's a big one. Yeah, it's epic. It's kind of classically one of those massive Civilization games. I wanted to play it for a while. And I never found anyone with a copy, so I'll definitely play that with you, Rick. But I think it's a commitment. It's a long one.
Yeah, I'm prepared to go for the commitment if it's a Sunday that I'm free and not at a convention.
It is a few hours long, yeah. Like I said, I've not played it yet, so I don't know what it's like. But it looks really nice. It looks like the video game. It's got like tiles where you have different kinds of terrain tiles and different unit types and things like that. There's a tech tree, and you can advance your civilization and get different victories. You can like a military victory and a science victory where you build a rocket to the moon and stuff. So things like that. It looks all right.
If I remember correctly, there was a Civilization game before the Sid Meier video game, which I think was just a coincidence because Sid Meier claims that he wasn't inspired by the board game. So is yours a Sid Meier one, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's not the one I'm thinking of then.
Yeah, it's branded with his name, and it's got the video game company on there as well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, definitely have the time.
Awesome. I'm jealous. I love retro game stuff. I would have loved to go onto that. Did you get to play any retro games, or was it just markets?
They don't. No, they don't. Some of them that I've been to have like systems out that you can play on, but this isn't like that. This is just a market, so just people selling them. They do have systems set up that you can see running and demo games and things like that, but it's not really a player's. You can't really sit down and play games. There's a few like arcade machines and things like that you can have a go on, but again, people are just selling them and demoing them, so it's not really a player's one. But loads of all sorts of different things like imports, really old games right up to like fairly modern ones. Like the newest ones I saw were like PlayStation 3 and Xbox games. if you're a collector or if you like playing old games, then yeah, it's a good day out.
So, well, I was obviously at the club a couple of weeks ago, and I've been on my travels, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later. I was up at Glasgow Games Gathering on Saturday, and I was at the Phoenix Lakeside War Games Expo today.
I've just been chilling. We had a barbecue today because the sun is out in full force. Oppressive sunlight.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, hasn't it? Yeah.
For the past 2 days, it's been amazing.
Not really board gaming weather.
So we had a barbecue. No, yeah, exactly. It gets this time of year. If you go down to a Tuesday, it gets a bit hot in the room, doesn't it? You have to open all the windows.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
But yeah, I've come back from the Isle of Wight festival. I mean, this was 2 weeks ago now. Weather wasn't so nice then. It was absolutely pissing it down with rain on the first day, squelching through the mud.
Oh, really?
They had to put down wood chips for the next 2 days. But that was incredible. Absolutely enjoyed the heck out of myself. That's been my past 2 weeks.
It's okay, so on to some games then. At the Tuesday meeting, we had a bit of a roll and write-a-thon. Roll and write games are where you, just a bit of a description if you don't know what that is, a roll and write game is where you get generally a pad and some dice, and all the players will take a sheet off this pad, and then you'll roll the dice and score some points depending on what you've rolled. So these games are becoming really, really popular. They've obviously been around for quite a while, and one of the old classic ones is Yahtzee, which we've recently played. Sam.
I didn't realise you would consider that a roll and write game, but now
yeah,
all right, that makes sense. Yeah,
it is.
But they're becoming more and more popular, and it's easy to see why, which we'll probably discuss soon. Have you guys had a chance to play many of these types of games?
I played Yahtzee very recently.
Against
Rick on Board Game Arena. Who won, Rick?
I think that was you at that time.
That's right. It was me. But that's I wasn't really aware of what roll and write games were until everyone started talking about them quite recently. So no, I haven't had a chance to play any of the more modern ones, unfortunately.
I've played Roll Through the Ages at some point last year, and at Aircon I played Railroad Inc. with Tom C. and his better half. So yeah, I really liked that one actually. I thought it was a nice take on the roll and write genre.
Yeah, I've not played either of those, so yeah, I look forward to trying those out.
Yeah, well, the good thing about Railroad Inc. is one person rolls the dice and all the players use the values. So you can't say, oh, they were luckier than me, they had the right dice rolls, because everyone's using the same dice roll.
We played this just after the UK Expo. We played these games, so I think a few people have brought a few back from the Expo, and there were a couple there as well that people have brought in, and that's all we did. We just played these games sort of throughout the evening. So we played 4 different games. The first one that we played was Quicks, and this one kind of lives up to its name. It is really quick to play. It's 15 minutes. This plays 2 to 5 players, and you get a pad and some dice, and these 4 rows of numbers. 2 rows go from high numbers to low numbers, and then 2 rows go from low numbers to high numbers. And basically you're just rolling dice, filling in boxes, and you get a score at the end of it. This was really quick, and it's a good filler game. It's really easy to kind of play. It plays really fast, and yeah, it was a good one. Another one that's a bit more recent that we played is Imperial Settlers Roll and Write. So Imperial Settlers is a card game that's been out for a couple of years now, and it's a game about sort of building up, getting resources, and building buildings, and getting points that way. And the roll and write game is very similar to that, very similarly themed. You roll dice in this one, and the dice are resources. So on the dice, you don't get just numbers; you get the resources themselves. So you might get wood or stone or actions that you can use. And in this one, you get 2 pads as well. You get a pad with the scoring elements on it that you get as usual with these kind of games. But you also get another pad as well, which has got some buildings on that you can build up. So you use the resources to build up the buildings. This one is 1 to 4 players, so you can play this in a solo mode as well. But it plays up to 4. And this one took about 30 minutes, I think it was. This is a brand new one. This is from 2019 as well. And quite enjoyed this one as well. Doesn't really feel like the card game very much, but building the buildings, putting them on your pad, scoring the points was really good fun.
So is this a trend now of board games being turned into roll and write games in the same sense that a lot of board games were being turned into dice games a few years ago, or a lot of card games were being turned into dice games like Bang the Dice Game and Roll for the Galaxy?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Is this a trend?
Yeah, I think so. There's an Istanbul dice game as well, which is, I don't know if that's a roll and write, but that's a dice game. But yeah, it seems to be a popular theme. Picking a game and then, turn it into a dice roll and write version.
There's definitely been an influx of more people interested in roll and write games. I've heard someone's collating a book of roll and write games.
Oh, wow.
The advantage is all you need to do is have a set of dice, and so the principle of the book was, here are a number of different games, you just need a set of dice to do so, which is quite a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I saw online in the week there's actually a roll and cut game. So you get a pad of paper, which has got all different bits to do with the park, and you cut out certain elements, and so instead of marking on with a pen, you arrange the different bits cut. So yeah, similar principle, but just applying it slightly differently, which I thought was quite cool.
That does sound cool. Do these dice tend to have custom symbols on, or are they standard 1 to 6 pips?
On the Imperial Settlers, they are custom dice. Another one that we're going to talk about shortly is Steamrollers, that has custom dice as well, but the rest of them just have normal 6-sided dice.
Railroad Inc. has got custom dice as well. So some sides are rails, some sides are roads, some sides are junctions with the two. So it's very much a case of you really need to have those custom dice to really understand what's going on.
What would you say the best one that you played is, Rick?
Well, I really liked Steamrollers. This one's a bit longer. It was a bit of a more involved game. This plays between 1 and 5 players, and it takes between 30 and 45 minutes. This one is you get a pad same as before, but it's actually got like a hexagonal map on it. And instead of like filling in boxes and scoring points for that, you're actually trying to make connections between cities. So on the map you've got cities, and when you roll a dice, you've got like different tracks. So you've got like a straight ahead piece, a left piece, and a sharp left piece, or a right and a sharp right. And you're basically just drawing those on the map and connecting the cities up, and you're getting points that way. There's a bit more to think about because you also have like special actions that you can do where you can choose to like re-roll the dice or flip it to its other face. And you're basically picking up cubes and moving them to cities to score points. So I really enjoyed that one. Evan spoke about this on the last podcast, and yeah, it was a really good one.
Do we have any roll and write games in the Sheffield Board Games Club library?
Not yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if some turn up in there.
If one shows up shortly. Okay.
Yeah. The last game that I played was a game called Welcome To. And this is a similar sort of thing, but on this one, instead of having dice, you have stacks of cards. So you have 3 sets of cards, and the cards will give you a pair of either an action or a number. And you also have a pad, which is similar to the other ones, where you're filling in numbers. And on this one, you're kind of zoning an area. So you've got a neighbourhood, which is made up of houses that go in a street on a row. And you're kind of splitting them up into sections. You're numbering all the houses. And again, you've got special actions that you can do, like you can fill in swimming pools, and they'll get you points at the end of the game. There are some like public objectives that you can go for as well, public goals that everybody's trying to get, and they help to change it up a bit as well. So you work your way through these deck of cards, filling in your pad, and then you count up your points at the end. And this is another good one. This one actually plays from 1 to 100 players. So
wow.
that's the advantage with some of these types of games, is that you don't necessarily interact with other players. You just see what's out on the dice, and then you just fill in your pad in the same way. So it doesn't really matter how many players you have. You can play, up to, like it says, 100. You just need the numbers and the actions from the cards.
101 if you wanted.
I guess so, yeah. It says up to 100, but yeah, I guess you could...
That sounds like something to aim for.
This took about 25 minutes, and this is from 2018, this one, so again, a fairly recent one. Awesome,
they sound like good fun.
Yeah. What surprised me was that even though you're doing the same kind of thing, with all these 4 games, I really enjoyed them, and they all had their own feeling, not just from the theme, but the different things you were doing, whether you were building cities or, how you scored and things like that. They all felt like their own game. They didn't feel, similar. And it's really easy to see why they're so popular, because they are all fairly quick. They're all well under an hour. Like Quicks is 15 minutes. And yeah, good fun. So I really enjoyed all these. Out of all of them, I didn't dislike any of them. I really liked all of them.
Excellent. I look forward to trying them.
Yeah, no, I heard a lot about Welcome To, so that's one that's on my radar for really trying to get onto the table to play myself.
Another game that we played recently is a game called Tiny Towns. This is another recent one. This plays between 1 and 6 players, and it takes about an hour to play it. So in Tiny Towns, what you're doing is you're getting resources and building buildings. You've got a board in front of you. Each player has a board, which is a 5x5 grid. What you do is one of the players calls out a resource, say glass, for example, and then what will happen then is everybody takes a glass cube, and you have to put that somewhere on your board. And eventually what you're trying to do is make shapes out of these resources to turn those into a building. So there are some cards out, and it tells you what resources you need to build that building. When you've got enough to build it, you take the cubes off, put a building down, and then you can go for another building then. And the buildings will score you different points depending on what other buildings you've got, how many there are, and things like that. The combinations in this are quite good because the cards that you describe the buildings are shuffled up and sort of distributed randomly at the start of the game. So you don't always have the same set of buildings. They'll all be different each game. So sometimes you'll get the points for, having the most of a particular type of building. Sometimes you'll just get straight points for, each individual type. You also get private card as well, which gives you a building that only you can build at the start. So you can work towards that as well, and people don't know what that is. That's a secret, that one. It's good because you're always doing something on your turn. So if it's not your turn, somebody else is calling out a resource, and you have to pick it up and put it on your board somewhere, but it might not necessarily be a resource that you want. So your board soon fills up with ththese resources and buildings, and then you're trying to squeeze things in. So the puzzle of trying to squeeze things in and get the right shape so you can build your buildings without having stuff stuck all over the place that you don't really want is quite interesting.
Cool. A few things that sound cool there. Games where you have a different setup. I love those. Where you have different cards laid out, like Dominion. You get a different set of cards each time. You can start strategizing before the game even begins. There's no standard opening. There's no, if you know the right thing to do on the first turn, you're going to jump ahead. I like that.
Yeah.
The player powers. That sounds cool. And I love games that give you something to do when it's not your turn. Is that what you said? Each turn, everybody's doing something.
Yeah, you're picking up a resource that somebody else has called out, and that has to go on your board somewhere into one of these spaces.
Yeah, because I was eating whilst watching you play the other week, and I liked the fact that because everyone had the same resource, there was not the random element of, well, I had a particularly unlucky turn. It was actually, you've all got the same things, it's how you deal with it, and I liked that.
It's what you do with them.
One of the things I found, though, that at the private buildings, the buildings that you build that are just for you, some of them will get you lots of more points than the other ones. some are just plain better, so I'm not quite sure how balanced they are. The people who got the kind of best buildings and leveraged them the most won in a couple of the games that I've played, so I don't know how much of that is a factor. But one of the other things as well is it comes with a small stack of cards. So instead of people shouting out what colour resource they want, you can actually flip over a card as well, and then everybody takes a resource of that colour. That's another variable way of playing it.
Oh, nice.
And who designed this game?
This is by I knew you were going to ask me that, so I've wrote it down. It's by Peter McPherson.
Oh, okay. I don't know who he is. Unfortunately, no offense to Mr. McPherson, but I'm sure he's a very talented designer. But I didn't recognise the name.
Yeah. Little wooden pieces for the buildings are really nice. You're kind of building up. It's like a bit of a puzzle as well. So you're trying to organise everything so that you're not wasting spaces by having stuff there that you're not going to tend to a building later on. Like I said, the variability of the buildings is really good. So yeah, I really liked it. It was a good game.
Well, I like the fact that there are some of the buildings where you're supposed to put a type of resource on them, and they're cut in such a way that the resource fits nicely onto them. I thought that's a really good touch.
Yeah. There's a
smart design.
There's a factory building where the cube actually sits on top of it. It does play up to 6 as well, which is an advantage. It's quite difficult to find games that play 6 players without going into the party game category, but this is one of them because everybody's going at the same time. It doesn't feel like it's ages before it's your turn again, so that's good thing. So Tom, you've been to the Glasgow Games Gathering.
Yes.
That's a long way to play games.
It's a long way to demo games. Yes. Well, I've been invited a while back, and it's at the end of my Kickstarter for Six Gun Showdown. So I thought, well, as a UK Games Expo at the start, go somewhere at the end and try to introduce the game to new people. And I think I did, but I went up to Scotland on the Friday night, and I didn't know what the convention was going to be like, because it's mainly a miniatures convention, and I've been to ChillCon in Sheffield earlier on in the year. I've been to other miniatures conventions like Triples that was based in Sheffield many years back, and you can have a very unique population amongst the miniatures war games by and large. And at ChillCon, I had some people interested in my games, and you had River Horse, and you had Mantic that provided some board games there, and we just didn't seem to have the interest. So I had a little bit of trepidation going up to Glasgow Games Gathering, but I thought, now I'll see what it's like, especially as the organisers had said, yes, we do miniatures, but we also play board games as part of our club, and we're aiming to have at least a good selection of board games there. So I went up, and I set my stand up, and I started looking around to see who else was there. So there was One Free Elephant, who are a Scottish-based independent games publisher. Sarah from there was next to me with their 3 games, Microbrew, Carcosa, and Awesome. You had Bad Cat Games with their first game, Elements, was there, and they're recently finished on Kickstarter that I talked about last time. They had Gladiatores. You had Card and Coffee Games, and they were playtesting their new creation. Mark McKinnon from Dream Big Games had his tabletop game. Now, admittedly, Wreck and Ruin is a board game that's a bit like a miniatures war game, so it kind of has its feet in both camps. But you had a number of actual publishers with their board games, and a few shops that sold board games as well, and some that sold role-playing games. So you did have a good mix of about, I'd say, 70% miniatures, 30% other things, and there was plenty of people coming around and playing games. There was also Asmodee there. They had about 4 tables with their games, so you had Cobra Paw.
Well, Asmodee owns a lot of games. And they seem to be everywhere. I actually saw in John Lewis not so long ago, an Asmodee rep, and I thought, oh, that's crazy. That just seemed really unusual to me.
Well, Asmodee's the biggest distributor now in the UK. Since they bought up Estevium, they are now the major distributor. Because they also own Coil Spring, another distributor in the UK, I think it leaves the Asmodee family, of 2 of the major ones, and then the third one is Spiral Galaxy, and that covers most of the board games distribution within the UK. So for them to be demoing at John Lewis, well, actually John Lewis is buying the games through them as a distributor, so it makes an element of sense. But they're good at what they do when they do the demoing. So they always seem to have fun. People seem to have fun at UK Games Expo and other places I've seen them. But it was really good in that aspect, because people walked into the convention, and normally at a miniatures convention, they're there for about 10 minutes having a look around, then they spend about 20 minutes looking at the you can't play this, just watch the really pretty miniatures demonstration games going on, another half an hour of shopping, and then they're gone. Whereas at this one, people came in, had a look around, looked at some of the demo games that they couldn't be involved in, and then spent time playing one of the many games that you can join in. And so instead of an in-out in about an hour affair, people staying an hour and a half, 2 hours, and really adding to the energy in the room. Possibly, there are some people there for a lot longer, and I think by having that proportion of board games and playable games available, kept people around at the convention, and it kept his energy up, I think, until about 3 o'clock. So, yeah, it was a really good convention.
Awesome. There's a bit of a divide between people who play war games and board games. I don't think there's a lot of crossover. I mean, of course, there's some, but I mean, I don't think I've ever played a war game. And it feels like people who play war games are really only interested in war games. And similar thing with collectible card games as well. There seems like, very, very separate areas with not much crossover. So it's cool that, there were demos going on there and people were getting involved. How many people did you demo to?
That's a good question. I think I ran about 10 10 to 15 demo games, but my wife also ran a few demo games of my first game, Vote Me. So there was one game where there was about about 6 or 7 people playing Vote Me on one table. And so yes, I think I ran about 10 to 15 demo games. Some of them it's just me demoing to another person. Other times I was running the demo, but there's 4 people playing, so I ran 2 sets of 2 at the same time. So good number of people coming along and enjoying the game. And then I was at the Phoenix Lakeland Expo this morning, just for a couple of hours, but that was on my way back from Glasgow. Stopped off at Penrith for a couple of hours before coming back to Sheffield. That was definitely a miniatures convention. I was the only person there that I could see that was demoing board games, card games. But there were still people around that were interested in playing. So in a couple of hours, I still gave about 3 or 4 demo games, and then I had to get back because I had to collect a small person from Beaver Camp. But it was a nice convention. It was in a nice place and it was well run. It was a miniatures convention and it did what it was doing pretty decently. As for what you were saying about people either being board gamers or miniatures gamers, unfortunately I sit in both camps because I have got hordes of miniatures and I've got hordes of board games, and I did dabble in Magic about 15 years ago, so I think I am the anomaly that is in... I sit in the middle of the Venn diagram.
You're everything.
I have role-played, I've done the works, and there are definitely some that do both, but I think you're right, we are less frequent, but still there's a portion. There's the Unlucky Frog Gaming guys in Scotland. I know Josh, if anyone listens to that podcast, Josh plays Magic the Gathering a lot. You've got Ben, who is a brilliant painter, and they clearly both play a lot of miniatures games, but they also play a lot of board games. So there's definitely the crossover. I've got a friend, Dave, in Sheffield, and he plays a lot of board games, but also we started getting, when we were friends a number of years back, we both played Warhammer, we've played War Machine with each other, and also Flames of War. So there are definitely some of us that play miniatures games and play board games as well. Just might not necessarily come down to, I think, the Board Games Club.
It sounds like an expensive place to be, the middle of the Venn diagram. Collectible card games and Warhammer and miniatures and board games.
It's keeping control and only doing a few at a time, and not kind of indulging in all the bon's vices at a single time.
Moderation,
if that's possible for those of us with the cardboard and plastic addict.
So I checked your Kickstarter before we started recording, and I noticed it's very close. It seems a lot closer than it was when you last recorded. It's not quite there yet. What are we on? You on about 85%?
Currently 95 backers and 86%.
Okay, so yeah, definitely getting there. And KickTrack says you're trending to get over 100 by the time it ends.
Yeah. So I think I'm hoping that in the next few days, if you've ever backed on Kickstarter, you know that there's a button where you can say remind me. So there's a number of people that I'm hoping have hit the remind me button and are going to come and get their reminder in a couple of days' time. They'll come and look and go, oh look, it's nearly funded. Yeah, I'm going to back it, rather than, oh look, it's at 30%, I won't. So I'm hoping that in the next couple of days when it hits that 48-hour mark, there should be an influx of people to get it over the line. It'd be nice if there's more beforehand.
Yeah, it seems like when it gets to about 90%, you're pretty much safe. Or in my experience, I don't know, but it seems like when something gets to 90%, you have enough people coming in towards the end or wanting to push it over the goal that you get to 100. You guys probably use Kickstarter more than me. Are there many cases where people get to 96% or something and it still fails? I haven't seen it before.
There is, and this is related to board games. There is a system that was on Kickstarter fairly recently, and I'll look it up for the next time I'm on, where basically it helps people playing board games at a distance, and they had devices. It's an online program and ways in which you could share secret cards and things like that. And they got to 90%, which was, and they didn't fund, but the difficulty is, I believe the setup costs were a little bit more pricey. So if you're at 90% and your game costs £100, or a minimum pledge is £100, people still think twice. I'm hoping that with a £16 pledge, generally people go, yeah, I can afford that. So it's not hitting the wallet too hard.
No, how do you feel about it? Do you get more, I don't know, tense about it as it gets closer towards the end of the project, or are you feeling optimistic?
I think I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't been tense since the beginning of the month.
Right, yeah.
There's always some tension. There's always that, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? I did a small Kickstarter in February just for the promo version, and that funded very quickly, and it was only for 6 days, so I was still feeling tense all the way through, even though it hit funds targets, even though it did everything. I was thinking, have I done the right thing? And there's so many things that you constantly think about. So there's definitely less tension now that I'm at the 85% than when I was at the 50-60%. But until it gets to not the 100%, but the 105, 110%,
Yep.
Because people, for whatever reason, pull out.
Oh, they can pull out, yeah.
So 100% isn't safe necessarily, because if you have someone pull out and you go from 100% to 99% in the last 30 minutes,
that would be the worst.
That's frustrating. So sort of 105, 110%, generally you've got a margin of safety. So yeah, it's looking like it's going to be trending that way. I think there's been 105 people backed, and so I've got about 10 people pulled out already. So that's why I'm saying you've just got to have that little bit extra, just in case people suddenly go, actually, this life event has happened, I can't afford to dedicate the money towards it, and so cancel. So.
Well, I'm sure it'll go all right for you, Tom. And you've been demoing literally today, did you say? So hopefully there'll still be people who've only just heard about it, still want to get in on it. How long does it go on for now?
I think it's the 4th or 5th of July. So this week it's going to end. I also talked to Andrew Bussey from Glasgow Games Gathering about the event and his thoughts, and also because he's part of a Glasgow Games group, thought it would be interesting to see how their club compares to ours. So here he is.
So I'm here with Andrew from the Glasgow Games Group.
Yep.
At the end, this is the pack-up of Glasgow Games Gathering, the first one for a number of years,
First
or one ever?
Well, first Glasgow Games Gathering, first show ran by ourselves, first wargame show or miniature show in Glasgow for 6 years now. There have been a few other shows. We've obviously got Glasgow Games Festival, etc., but this is the first kind of miniature-based show in Glasgow for 6 years. Run by ourselves. It was previously run by another club. So far it's gone really well.
Yeah.
Seems to have gone really well.
Well, I've enjoyed it as a miniatures player and cut my teeth in development as well. I've liked the miniatures, but also as a card and board game designer now as well. I thought there was a good mix of everything actually. So I enjoyed today. Could you tell us a little bit about Glasgow Games Group then?
Yeah,
please?
sure. So we are a club in Glasgow that's been going for, well, this is our 20th anniversary this year.
Wow.
Although we actually think it's a wee bit longer because we can't quite tie it down. But yeah, so certainly 20 years we've been going for. We founded originally, there was 10 guys. We now have 50 to 60 guys every Tuesday night through the door. We are a majority of a miniature wargaming club, probably about 80%, but there is a good core, 2-3 groups of guys who are playing board games every night. There is 2 steady role-playing groups at the club as well, so we get a good variety. And because we are in that lucky position of the club funds itself very well, we are able to provide a good selection of boards, scenery, a lot of facilities for people to use at the club. And we felt that this has helped, along with a good dose of luck, to help the club grow to where it is at this stage.
Do you have a board games library as well? That's one of the things we have at the Sheffield Board Games Club, or just the scenery for the war games?
Currently it's just the scenery for the war games. Unfortunately we don't have a lot of storage space, so the scenery takes up a lot. But we've got some very good board games players who are very active in arranging games, and are always very welcoming to new players to say, if they've got a space, yeah, sure, join in our game, all these kind of things. Certainly it's something we'd like to look at. Again, it's something we'd like to look at the show. Obviously today has just been traders and demo games, but there's a lot we'd like to do with the show, given time and space.
Yeah, well, I could see Asmodee were here, and there's other board games people. There's One Free Elephant next to me. I could see Bad Cat Games with their brand new game Gladiatores. You had Card and Coffee Games as well. So, and as well as plenty of other miniatures. So, do you think you'll stay in the same space next year, or hopefully get bigger? What's your thoughts?
I suspect we'll probably be here for probably 2-3 years. Let us become established. Stick with kind of what we've got just now. As I say, let it become established. There is a small amount of space still available here that we may look to hire to potentially do something like a small bring and buy, or a small amount, or a small board games library and open play space. But certainly this seems to be a good venue. A lot of the traders have said it's quite easy to access in terms of motorway. It's good for people travelling here. There's good links to Glasgow City Centre, all these kind of things. So I can see us being here for at least a few years.
Yeah, I spoke to a number of people who've just come across from Edinburgh as well, and so nearby. So yeah, I think you've got the mix well.
Well, I would like to say, I really appreciate, guys like yourselves coming up. I understand, especially for people who are further down and further south in the country, it's a lot greater ask, because it's not just a few hours in a car, it's travel time, it's overnight stays, all these kind of things. We hope that we can continue to grow in the success, and that it'll just and that in future years we'll have more and more to offer.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed it. It's been useful for me to see how things are done differently. So it felt, as I said earlier, different to just a straight miniatures setup. It felt like there was a lot of miniatures, but also a good number of board games as well. And also that was exemplified with the traders. You had some with miniatures, games, and also board games on sale. So thank you very much for your time, Andrew, and good luck with the tidy up. I'm about to escape to the pub.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Is the Glasgow Games Gathering, is that a regular thing? Is it going to be an annual event?
I think they're going to have it as an annual event. They've got to obviously look at the numbers. This is the first year they've run it. So, yeah, there was something that was run a few years back, but this is the first year that particular thing's been running. There's other events in Glasgow, but not one that's got a lot more of a miniatures focus. But they're going to look at the numbers. I suspect that it'll be running again next year based on my observation of the numbers of people there and the energy. But they've listened to people and they've taken advice from other people. One of the nice things that they've done, and they've stolen, and they admit they stole it from the guys who do ChillCon, is they've got a card where you go in, everyone who attends gets a card, and if you spend £10 at a trader, you get a red sticker. If you have a demo game with someone, you get a purple sticker, and you need to fill in 2 or 3 red stickers and 2 or 3 purple stickers. And if you do that, then I think you get £10. You either get entered into a prize draw, or you get £10 value to spend somewhere. So there's that incentive to engage with people. I thought that was a really nice way of doing things, and and because there's plenty of demo games available, a number of people had fairly full or even completed cards that I saw. So, yeah, very good incentive to get people playing and trying games, but also spending their money with the traders.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. What I'll do is I'll put some links in the show notes so people can look there for some more information if they want it. Okay, so coming up next we've got Dave and Paul, who are club members, and they've been playing Tokyo Highway. So let's hear from them.
What's your name, please?
I'm Paul.
What are you playing today?
We're playing Tokyo Highway.
What's it about?
It's a dexterity game. in which we are building roads emulating Tokyo without making a complete terrible hash of things. The objective for each player is to build roads either above or below the roads of your opponent, and you score points based on how many of them you manage to cross over in any given turn.
And who won?
I won, yes.
On the ball. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Oh, that was really interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed hearing from that member.
Yeah, thanks to Dave and Paul for that clip. Now, Sam, we played a couple of board games online not long ago.
Yeah, so we had a go on Board Game Arena, which is, I believe it's the biggest online way you can play these board games. There are some others. There's one called Boîte à Jeux, which is a French one. There's a Yucata. And of course, the bigger publishers, they release their apps and versions on Steam. But in terms of the number of games, the number of players, Board Game Arena, I believe, is the biggest one. So we played a game of Tokaido, the kind of quite relaxed game of taking a journey across Japan, meeting people, eating good food, resting at nice inns, taking in the sights, and scoring points. I think this is the best way to play this particular game, at least, because I've played it quite a few times on Board Game Arena. It goes really quickly. It takes 10 minutes? 15 minutes maybe to play all the way through to the end. It's not like a super deep game, so you kind of want it to go forward at a nice clip, you know? Whereas if you're playing at a table, you've got to be fiddling around and, with components, and you've got people taking longer to take their turns generally.
Yeah.
So it tends to drag, it's like 45 minutes to play at the table, 15 minutes online. So that's one reason I do appreciate playing games online. It's being able to play games faster. The computer deals with, the bookkeeping, get to play them more often. You don't have to actually meet up as a group. That to me is the big advantage of playing games online. You don't get the social aspect as much, though. When me and Rick played, we played with voice chat, which was nice. But usually you're just playing against strangers. You've just got text chat, but no one uses it a great deal, so you lose the social aspect. But I still appreciate playing games just for their inherent value, for their strategic value. And so I still enjoy playing games online, even though you don't get the social aspect.
Yeah. I was quite impressed how all the rules and everything were all kind of built into it, so you can't do anything wrong or make a mistake or anything. It tells you when it's your turn, and it's got hints as well, so you can hover your mouse over the certain cards, and it'll tell you what the icons mean and things like that. That's really good.
Yeah, quicker than flicking through the rule book, definitely.
Yeah. It's
designed so the computer deals with that side of things for you.
And I was impressed with the range of games as well. There were quite a lot of different types of games on there. There was Love Letter, Seasons. I think I saw Terra Mystica on there as well. All sorts of different games, really. Werewolf you spoke about.
How does a social deduction game work if people aren't talking and being so social?
Well, they chat over text to begin with, and they give away the information that they've received. So if you're the seer and you've seen one of the cards, you can talk about it. You can still lie, but it's really all over text rather than
Right.
voice in person.
So you don't need to have a good poker face then?
No, yeah. Although I played one game of werewolf yesterday. I was a werewolf. We played the first night. We killed one of the villagers, and then immediately the text chat filled up with "It's Sam. Kill Sam. Sam's the werewolf. Kill Sam." And almost unanimously, I was killed. So I don't know quite what I did wrong. I didn't realize there's some way of giving yourself away. I guess it's because someone was the seer. They saw I was the werewolf, but everyone believed him. Anyway, so that was my one game of werewolf. I don't know, maybe not the best game to play online, not the best example, but there are lots of options on Board Game Arena, a huge selection. What do we see?
Yeah, there really are. There's loads of different games, isn't there?
I haven't played anything as heavy as Terra Mystica, it's still going to take 2 hours, isn't it, or longer?
I guess it'll be quicker than the real game.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, there's kind of a time limit on your turn taking, isn't there? And you don't have to worry about putting pieces down and messing around with tokens and things like that. It does it all for you. So I'm guessing it will be quicker. But that's a really good option if you like those kind of games, I think.
Yeah, a setup and teardown can take a wee while. Do they have games such as the legendary things where you're doing all the deck building and so on?
I haven't seen any deck builder games on there. I've seen lots of deck building apps, so you can get Star Realms and Ascension. I don't know if Thunderstone is. There's the Dominion. There's a Dominion app, I believe.
Isn't Dominion a deck builder? Or it's the app, isn't it? Yeah. Because that's what I found with trying to play a legendary game the other day. It's just getting all the cards together is a pain. So you've got 15 minutes of working out your different sets of cards and getting them all together and shuffled, and then at the end taking them apart. So that would really seem to want to fit quite nicely as an online option.
Yeah, in Legendary and Dominion especially, where the cards go into groups. You know, it's something like Star Realms, they will just mostly go into a trade deck. There's not a lot of sorting out at the end of the game. But putting away Legendary or Dominion at the end of a game is a pain.
Yeah. Well, I've played Keyforge online through the Crucible site, and it was very useful for me because I've got a couple of decks end of last year. I hadn't had a chance to play it, and so played it online, and I got to learn the basics that way. And then I went to a sealed deck event run by Patriot Games in Sheffield, and so I could start playing with other people that played before and mostly know what I was doing. But after that, sort of around about February, March time this year, I'd been playing Crucible but discovered you had a prevalence of particularly powerful decks, and I think a lot of people go on to Crucible now wanting to try out so many other people's decks, but particularly the powerful ones, and just have this desire to win more. I only ever used my decks to try and see what they're like, but it did feel like I was seeing a lot of Horseman decks, for example, and some very quite tricky to beat decks, and it looked like they're probably more powerful. I could be casting aspersions here, but the other attitudes I found was when you were in a very strong place to win, the number of people that just went, well, I'm not going to see it through to the end, I'm just going to quit out now, or I'm going to stop playing, rather than go, yeah, I'm probably going to lose, but I'll continue. They just go, nah, gone.
Yeah, you get punished for that in Board Game Arena. You can't just leave a game or your reputation goes down, and you kind of have to have something like that. And video games have the same thing. You get punished for leaving a game early because it's no fun for the other person. You can't do that in real life, can you? You can't just say, fuck it, and leave the pub.
Well, you can flip the table, but generally you get a reputation.
Sure, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, what you mentioned about getting some practice in, that's a good point. If you want to sort of play the game in real life, it's a good way of kind of learning the game and, you know, learning the intricacies of it, and all the ins and outs of the different ways and strategies that you can play it before you actually go and play it in real life, I guess.
Yeah, well, my other experience was 4 or 5 years ago. I was playing X-Wing online through the Vassal program, and had the X-Wing add-on. And it was against someone I played on a club night in Sheffield. And so it's someone I knew and we were talking online, but I struggled with the interface, and it was just my first time for using it, so I think that was part of it. But taking something where I'm used to playing miniatures games and have a visual eye for it, I was really struggling with the online element of judging distances and turns and things like that. So there's
how does it display where the ships are and everything? Then is it like a top-down map, or is it 3D? Or
you do have a 2D map, and it's obviously very accurate, but I found that I'm now used to gauging distances visually on a table, and I think I just hadn't got that same level of training to work out how it is on the representation on a computer screen. I suspect, had I played it a few times, that I'd have quote-unquote got my eye in and could then start to estimate the distances a lot better. I think I got my ass handed to me, but the electronic dice rolls followed my normal dice rolls, and the dice just hated me, and I kept on rolling poorly. But, you know, that's what happens with dice.
We do have a few club members that are really good at X-Wing, though, so, yeah, they do play quite a bit.
We've got some, devotees.
So don't feel too bad about that, yeah.
So, Crucible and Vassal, these are unofficial versions of the game.
So Crucible is definitely unofficial. Vassal is not just X-Wing. I think you can play, I think it's mainly for miniatures games, so I believe there was a War Machine add-on and other miniatures games, and so certain amounts of the rules you needed to know, so it wasn't totally automated.
Yeah.
But there were bits that were, and so it just gave you a 2D space that you could play your games on.
One of the good things about the web-based ones as well is the one that we played, the Board Game Arena. I think I've played that on a tablet before as well, so you don't have to be sat like at a computer with a keyboard and a mouse. You can just play it online with a tablet as long as you've got internet access.
No, that's good.
Tokaido has its own app as well. It's got its own downloadable app that you can buy from the stores. So I played that a couple of times. That's quite good.
That's interesting. So, they have the game on Board Game Arena, but also an app that you pay for. You'd think they'd only want, they'd want people to go to the app, but I suppose having it on Board Game Arena is like advertising to buy either the full game or the app.
Yeah,
perhaps.
And it seemed quite popular on there as well, because there were myself and you playing, Sam, and we also had a couple of other people join in as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like the rooms are empty and there's nobody on there. There are people, playing these games on there.
Yeah, they fill up quickly. I think Tokaido is one of the more popular games, but even the less popular games, you tend to get people joining them very quickly. I wish there were digital versions of all games, to be honest, but I think collectible card games and miniatures games, you don't see them as often. I guess because the physical versions are so lucrative, they don't want to push people to the digital versions.
You do have some CCGs, and you can have the electronic versions of what you physically bought, and you kind of have an electronic wallet and a physical wallet, and you have things such as Hearthstone, which is a CCG, but it's completely electronic as a CCG, don't you? So
yeah, there's Magic the Gathering that has a couple of digital versions, and you can buy cards. I don't know if I wonder what the price difference is between buying a deck on like Magic the Gathering online between buying them in person. You'd hope it's cheaper, but who knows. But Fantasy Flight, I wanted an online version of Netrunner for a long time because I felt I could never play enough Netrunner, or at least not enough to get good at it. And that never happened. And I think they've lost the license or something now because they've stopped making new Netrunner decks.
Yeah, the license has gone back to somebody else now, so yeah, you'll see Netrunner again, just not through
Fantasy Flight. That's a shame. But they have released a version of their Lord of the Rings living card game online, or at least I think it's soon to be released. So hopefully other CCGs will follow suit.
I know that you've got some independent games as well, so Assembly by Ren Games, one of the co-designers, Stu, he learnt how to code and used that to write an electronic version of Assembly which you can buy.
Wow.
So that was actually written by one of the designers as well, so it requires sort of either certain skills.
When are we getting the app version of Six Gun Showdown?
Oh, that would be so, because you'd have your phones in front of you, and then like the phone screen when you first turn over a gun would become like a button that the other person would have to like reach over the table and press. That would be so cool.
Yeah, get on that, Sam. We need a version of that.
Yeah, if anyone knows how to code and is prepared to sort of give me a call, then yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, the only code I know is DNA code rather than electronic code. So.
But yeah, I enjoyed playing online, and like you say, I think for me it probably was a bit of that social contact with it, but because we were on chat as well, that kind of helped a little bit. I think if you're just playing like a faceless random person off the internet, I'd probably rather play, like a video game or something.
Yeah, that's true.
But definitely, if it's people you know or that you can talk to, that makes it a bit more personal.
That's definitely the other thing, is if you're going to play a digital game, why not just play a video game? It's a good question. I suppose being a board game club, we should big up the advantages of actually coming to the club and playing in person a little bit. So yeah, as much as I love digital games, I do of course love playing with everyone at the club. Love playing with you guys. That you lose something playing digitally.
Yeah,
I think there's that interaction. That's one of the things I like when I'm at conventions and demoing to people, is that interaction with people. And for me, when I'm demoing, one of the best bits is I've given someone a demo, they've played their first 2 rounds of the game, they've played it for 5 minutes, and you can then see as their eyes change and they've gone, I now know what I'm doing and I'm now planning my next move. And you can see that change and that social interaction with people. And I think that's my draw to playing tabletop games, whether cards or board games or miniatures games, is that interaction with people. I think that's the most valuable bit. So however good things get electronically, often you're missing out some of that social interaction, which I think is a shame.
That's a good conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about these games then, because I chose these specifically because I played Hanabi with Rick, and I played Dice Summers with Tom, so I thought it would be a good chance to talk about these games. Hanabi was really funny. So what I wanted to do when we were playing Hanabi is get a recording of what we were playing and play that during the podcast and say, try and guess what game we're playing. And what the listeners would have heard was, oh my God, what the fuck? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
And I would have said, so any guesses what game we were playing? And then I would have played the rest of the clip and it would have been like, you've got, these 2 cards are 4s. And everyone would have been like, Hanabi? Seriously? This was a very intense game of Hanabi that we played with Angelo, who's very serious about giving good clues. So each time we gave a clue, we all kind of looked around at Angelo and he's like,
is that okay?
Yeah, is that all right? And he's like, yeah, that one's okay. It went on forever. It went on way longer than it should have done. Hanabi should be like a short, 10-minute game. To give a quick explanation, Hanabi, the clever thing about Hanabi is that you take your cards, you've got 4 cards in your hand, but you don't look at them, you face them away from you. So it's the other people in your group that can see the cards in your hand, and they're having to give you clues on each of their turns that allows you to work out what you've got and what order you should play these cards to the table. Which is genius. It's such a brilliant idea for a co-op game. That you can't see your cards and everyone has to help you work out what they are in order to win as a group. I absolutely love it. Yeah, very clever game. But this one, it went on a little bit too long.
It was quite an intense game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we didn't do too bad, I think, for some beginners. Like I've played it once before, maybe. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah, it was quite. I found it quite difficult trying to remember. What you got in your hand.
Yeah.
You have to keep the card. You can put the cards in any order, but you have to remember these 2 are blue and this one's a red. This one's a 5 or whatever it might be. Trying to keep track of that is quite tricky. But yeah, it was good. It was a good game, and like you said, the tension and the energy that's in there is great.
And like almost the dramatic irony of someone holding up their hands and saying, I think this one is red and these 2 are 2s, and everyone is just looking at you thinking, no, that's not right, but you can't say anything.
Yeah, that's one of the downfalls of the game, I think, is that the rules on what clues you can give are a bit because it's obviously a social game. You when people say, "Oh, this one's definitely red," and everybody groans, you're kind of giving away information there that you shouldn't really be giving away. And you can give information about the colour of the card and what number it is and how many you've got and things like that. But it is quite strict in what rules you're allowed to give and what you're not. But sometimes you give away a bit more than that. So I don't know if there's a way to counter that or
well, you could play it digitally, couldn't you? If you wanted a perfect game that was just about giving clues. But I think, that social aspect of trying to keep a poker face or trying not to give anything away is part of the fun of it. It's what makes it funny.
I think that added to the game. Yeah, it made it a lot more interesting.
We had people walking past saying, "Oh well, why don't you just look at each other's cards?" Because we were giving too much away, or like on our faces or in how we reacted. But come on, give us a break.
The unintentional cheating kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's not really cheating as such, is it? But it kind of, it's a kind of grey area, I think. I've actually seen a different version of this game played as well. There's one where you can get like little tiles instead of cards. So you can put the tiles like in front of you and you just leave them there, so you don't have to like hold the cards up or anything, and they show what you're.
Okay, and is that Hanabi, or is it a different game that has the same? Oh, it is.
It's the same game. It's the same name. Yeah. Just a different version, I think.
I don't think there are a lot of co-op games don't really feel very cooperative when someone, one person will take charge. That's kind of a common complaint with co-op games. And they don't. Yeah, they don't always feel like you're really helping each other. You're just kind of almost playing perhaps like a solo game, but split into parts. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this is a sort of game where it really feels like a cooperative experience. So that's what I played with you, Rick. I played Dice Summoners with you, Tom. And where did you get this game?
So I met at UK Games Expo 2018 a trio of lovely Irish bods, which are Decking Awesome games. And
Decking Awesome.
I tried their game out, and I thought, yeah, this is a bit of fun, so I backed it when it came out to Kickstarter in autumn last year. And it showed up, I think it was May time. It might have been April, I can't remember, but fairly recently. And so I've now played it 3 times, but unfortunately it's just the balanced setup each time. So I'd like to play it with some of the other card variants. It's a dice building game is how they've crafted it, and I think it's got a nice mechanism to it, the way that you set up your cards and you've got a certain number of creatures, and the creatures provide you with dice, and then you roll however many dice you've got available, and you can then use them to either activate some of the powers by the creatures or use them to cast some of the spells you've got. The spells that you start with are to either get new creatures, or you can learn new spells, or to learn a curse, or I can't remember what its name, I think it's an omen, or so it's basically a positive aura. That's the word.
Aura, that's what it's called. Yeah.
It's an aura and a hex. And the game that we played used the balance setup, but it was a bit slow, and then it ended in a flurry of attacks, because I think we both went on we're going to build our engine up, right, it's at its maximum, let's just try and smack the opponent as hard as possible. So I think next time I want to try playing, I'm just going to do a little bit of engine building, but just try attacking my opponent early, or different ways of playing the game, rather than just build up, 3 blows and then someone's on the floor.
It seems it definitely seems like that was the right way to do it. And I don't know, because I've only played the game once, which means I haven't really played it at all, because I didn't know what I was doing. But the way we did it, or the way the game works, is that each time you buy a monster, you also get a new dice to add to your pool, and that dice is going to allow you to do more each turn. And so the engine building is kind of getting as many dice as you can. But if you don't do that, if you choose to use your dice to do something other than getting more dice, it feels like you would be left behind. That's the impression I got.
Yeah, I'd agree with you to a certain extent that you want to at least get a new creature each turn. But I think there could be that as long as I use 2 of my values to get a creature, I can possibly use my other dice to do some attacking. So, or to build my defences up or something. So,
I love the idea of the game. I kind of thought about it as, a deck builder with dice. And I know there are lots of games that describe themselves as like dice builders. There's that Marvel one. I haven't played any of them, I don't think. I think this is a slightly different setup, which is that what you're buying is not dice. You're buying cards, and then you're rolling. You do get dice as well, but you're rolling the dice, and then you're putting them on your cards to activate the cards. So you've got the randomness of a deck builder. But instead of that randomness coming from drawing cards from a deck, it's the dice rolls. And you're adding cards. The cards you add are like the options you have to...
And you can choose what you're doing with the values each time. So there's always that choice option. There's a bit of randomness, but there's a lot of choice, isn't there?
I think it's very cool, the idea. I'm not sure. I feel like it could be more developed. I feel like there will be other games that use the same mechanism in the future, which will take it further and also be a little prettier as well. Because this game had kind of quite basic artwork in terms of the monsters.
Yeah, I think being hypercritical, I think they could have done with having a few different backgrounds. So it was spells are beige, creatures are brown, but there was a lot of similarity to the backgrounds, and maybe a bit more variety of, well, actually, this is a sort of a velvety red, and this is a brown, and this is a blue, kind of to keep that a little clearer visually. Everyone's got their own preferences for artwork, and so I can understand where they went to with the artist and that art style. But for a first game, I thought actually they've got some nice ideas, and sometimes you've got to start somewhere and learn from that to build something better for game number 2 and game number 3.
Of course. It has to exist badly before it can exist well, and they have made a game, and it did feel original, and it was all right. I just hope I hope they make another one, or someone else makes another one and goes even further with it.
Well, I spoke to Brian, Owen, and Kira at UK Games Expo, and they're definitely working on new things. But obviously, this is their first game out there, so they're now learning the elements after you've made a game of getting it into shops, getting people to buy it, to then move to the next stage of it. So, but it's good that there's 3 of them, and I know they're developing new things as well, and we'll certainly learn from their experience of making their first game.
So last game I was going to talk about was Mage Knight. Just very quickly, I'll insist on being quick, because if I tried to explain the rules to this game, we would be here for the next 2 hours. It's a very big, deep, complex game. It's made by Vlada Schvartel. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Who's awesome. I love him. He's my favourite designer by far. He is known for making quite complex games, board games with big rule books. And I think this is his most complex. It's kind of like an RPG in board game form. You take control of a mage and you go questing across the lands, killing monsters, getting experience points. A certain number of experience points, you get new abilities. You can play it cooperatively or competitively. I think I enjoyed the cooperative game we played more. But you can play it both ways. And I think, I basically really love this game. It's got elements of deck building. You've got spells and abilities which make up your deck, and you draw them on your turn, and those are like the cool things you can do to kill monsters and take over castles, and draw mana from the earth. Get stronger as you go, and then you go off and fight dragons. There's a huge book of campaigns which tell you what the goal is for each scenario. It might be kill a certain number of dragons, take over a certain number of castles, score a certain number of points, whatever. It's a long game. We've played so far the most basic co-op scenario and the most basic competitive scenario. And I think they both took so we started at 7:30, and I think we finished, close to 11, so we're talking about 3.5 hours. So they're pretty, and these are the most basic scenarios. So to play the more complex ones, I think you're talking all day. This is something you would set a day aside for.
Right.
And I've said before, I'm not really a big fan of long games. I couldn't sit through a whole game of Twilight Imperium. Well, I have sat through a whole game of Twilight Imperium, and I didn't like it. So a game that can keep me invested for 3 hours, 4 hours, I think is an excellent game, and this is definitely the game that does that. If you're going to play a game like that, it doesn't really work at the club, because we arrive at the club at 7 and they close at is it half 11?
I think so, yeah, half 11.
Half 11. So with setup, with explanation, and just with table space as well, because we've only got so many boards, and this one is a big game. You can't really fit those long games in. You could on a Sunday, if you were to go down to the Red Deer on a Sunday, we play from 12:30, pretty much until the pub closes. Or you can arrange games with other people on the forum. We've got a special forum dedicated to arranging games with people outside of club nights. So I play this outside of a club night. It's the sort of game that you need to do that for, I think. Have either of you played Mage Knight?
No, it sounds epic though.
I've seen pictures of it before, and it really came to my attention because I heard what had happened at Origins this year, and it was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Along with Apples to Apples. So I've played Apples to Apples before, and it's nice.
Very different games.
But it's a case of, from what you're saying, it's definitely apples and oranges almost,
Yeah, that's good.
So, but it sounds like the kind of game that I'd definitely be intrigued to play. because I do, it's nice having like games. It's nice having games that are sort of either half an hour or sort of an hour and a half, but also other ones where they've got a bit of teeth to them and can get into. Sounds good.
How resilient are you to long games, Tom? Can you play 5-6 hour games without getting fidgety?
I've got Arkham Horror Second Edition. That always used to take a wee while. So, and I've played sort of day-long tournaments where you sort of play 3 games in the space of a day. So I think I can get a day's worth of gaming. I've got the endurance from things that way. So yeah, I think I can cope.
I think this is the one that you can solo as well. You can play it on your own. Is that right, Sam?
You can, yeah. I haven't played it that way. I don't know how it would work out. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know how I feel about solo games. Kind of for the same reason that you brought up earlier. Is if you're going to play a solo game, why not just play a video game? That's my personal feelings about it. But to be honest, I've never tried. I don't think I've played a single solo game. It would be a lot of faffing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in the same boat. Yeah,
get out and
I don't know if it could be, get all the stuff out and then put it all away again. There's no app version of Mage Knight then. Is it purely just a board game currently?
No, I don't think there's an app version.
Right.
If you play on your own, you don't have anyone to high five at the end either, or someone to shout at. If you're playing competitively, no, there should be an app. There isn't, but it's a game that would benefit from it.
Yeah. So we, if you didn't know already, the club has its own small library, and we add games to it every now and then, just to give players a bit more choice. So if you turn up to the club and you don't have a game to play, you can always play one of the club games. So I've added quite a few recently with people going to the expo. They brought a few back with them. So, for example, we've added Spyfall Augustus. That's one that I've played recently at the club. We actually played that one. That's the Roman Bingo one. That's a good fun. That plays up to 6 players.
Yeah, Roman Bingo is exactly what it is.
Yeah. Hanabi, which we've already talked about. Colt Express. That's the train one, isn't it? Where you're playing cards to pick up money and gems and things like that.
It's got the nice 3D train, right? So you can see. Yeah,
it's a 3D train and cavalry.
When someone's playing that, you can see it across the room.
Forbidden Desert, is that one of the Matt Leacock games?
Is it? That's a good question.
Oh yeah, Forbidden Desert.
Sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's the cooperative game where you're kind of stuck in a desert and you have to find pieces of your machine to fly out of there. I think. Yeah, I've played that a couple of times. That's a good game.
Also Sushi Go, which that's a really nice filler. And did you speak about that on the podcast?
We've talked about
that we released, or was it just a test? Hey, that's my fish. Which is like a really nice, simple area control game.
I've only played that once, but I really enjoyed it. It was quite a while ago, so I'd be interested to play this again. This is one where you can cut people off, can't you? I don't know if you've played it, Sam. Have you tried this one?
Yeah, I have. So the board is made up of individual tiles. You have penguins. Each of the tiles has fish on, which are your points at the end. And each time you move a fish, you take away a tile. So like the ice is melting beneath your fish characters, basically. Very, very, very simple, but also kind of clever. And
it is. It kind of looks a bit like a kid's game, but when you come to play it, it's quite ruthless because you kind of when you pick up a tile and you're taking these things away, you're cutting people off and you're cutting the board into like sections you can't like jump over a tile that's been removed. So
yeah, playing with the kids, I feel, and you trap them in a corner on 2 pieces of ice or whatever, and they've got no more fish to get. I feel like that could cause some upsets.
Yeah, so I'd be quite interested to try this again.
Bonanza is a trading game, I suppose. Mainly, it's about collecting beans and trading with other people to get the right beans into your hand. What's really clever about this one is that you get your hand and you're not allowed to reorder the beans. You have to plant them in that order. And so basically you have to trade cards out of your hand in order to get cards into your hand in the right order so that you can plant them, so you don't, so you farm most efficiently. That's really cool. And then the wild card, the game I've not even heard of, Fast Flowing Forest Fellows. Can anyone enlighten us on that?
Nope, no idea on that one, I'm afraid.
Sounds like a tongue twister to me. No, not played it.
It is a game by... help me out, Rick. It's the guy who designed Power Grid.
Friedman Fries.
Yes, of course. Which is why it's F's.
Oh, yeah.
Translation of, fast flowing forest fellows. That's one of his trademarks. I don't know anything about this one,
No, me neither.
so that's the end. That's the end of that.
Something to test out before the next podcast, clearly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
Tune in next week. These are all like new to the club, and most of them are classics, classic gateway games that I think most people have played before. That was just a bit of an odd one out. And yeah, I think these are coming down to the club if they're not there already in the next week or so.
Yeah.
So if you fancy joining us, you don't have any games, or you don't want to arrange one on the forum, feel free to just come down, pick one out of the club library, and get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's plenty of good ones to choose from, aren't there?
Yeah, it's a really awesome selection, actually. And I think Carl got these like super cheap. I think he paid £100 for all of those games. So that's like, I think, are there 11 games there? So, less than £10 per game. This was at the UK Expo Bring and Buy. So brilliant deals. I haven't seen them yet. Maybe they're like in terrible condition and they're missing pieces.
No instructions.
Yeah.
Hey, that's my fish with no.
Yeah, you don't get any fish.
Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. We would love to hear your questions, comments, anything you'd like to send us. So you can contact us by email, which is sheffieldboardgamers@gmail.com. The forum is www.sheffieldboardgamers.com. You can contact us on Facebook. And Tom, why don't you give us your details, please?
So, yes, I am Redwell Games, so you can find me on Twitter at Redwell Games and Facebook at Redwell Games, and also www.redwellgames.com. And I also do turn up to Sheffield Board Gamers infrequently when I'm in the midst of demoing games. So I think over the summer, once Six Guns done, I'll be along more frequently. And I also go to the monthly playtesting session at the Treehouse of the second Wednesday of every month. So you'll always find me hanging around there playing the newest games and helping people out when they're designing their new stuff as well.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us, guys. And we will speak to you again soon. Goodbye for now. Goodbye.
See you later.
Goodbye.